The Choose Love movement offers no-cost solutions that keep our kids safe, providing them with the skills and tools they need to flourish. Join us in our mission to create the world we want to live in, one that's connected and compassionate. Check us out at chooselovemovement.org. Together, we can choose love.
Hello, everyone. The Choose Love Movement podcast and the listeners and followers and members. We are so grateful that you're here. My name is Scarlett Lewis. I'm the founder of the Choose Love Movement, and I have two very special guests with me today. I have Bill McKenna and Liz Larsen. So Bill and Liz are the creators of the Cogno movement, and this is so special that I wanted to introduce it to our Choose Love followers. And I'm really excited. I met Bill maybe 10 years ago now at a fundraiser. And I think that we had a kind of a side talk, and you did something with me with a bottle of water, and it made me feel better. You called it the Cogno movement. And ever since, I've been really, really interested. And I'm so happy to share you all with our audience. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. We're both so excited to share this time with you.
Thank you. Well, instead of me just reading off an introduction, I would love for each of you to introduce yourselves. Bill, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is Bill McKenna, and I am the co-founder of Cogno Movement with Liz Larsen. This entire thing evolved since about 2016 is when the original inventions started coming together. And we both had kind of odd paths to get here. We have no business really knowing each other than for this combined effort, which seems almost cosmic in nature, that we came together to get this modality out to humanity. Liz?
So I'm Liz Larsen. I'm the co-founder of Cogno Movement as well, along with Bill McKenna. And really, the work that we do together has to do with helping people change the way their nervous system interacts with itself, like how the brain and body acts and interacts, how the brain and nervous system take in information, and then how it reacts to stimulus around it. And anything relating to that, our work can create change for people.
So change in what way? What's the purpose of the Cogno movement? How can people listening benefit?
Well, Cogno Movement, like I said, addresses really anything that has to do with that nervous system. So one of the biggest things that people use it for is changing trauma. So what we know is that trauma actually creates a kind of an injury to this nervous system that we have, this electrical, hormonal, chemical system that's always sending signals back and forth. And so trauma can even be seen on the brain in PET scans. The Amen Clinic has shown us that.
I have one. I have a brain scan from the Amen Clinic showing TBI, traumatic brain injury.
Yeah. So the work that we do can really interrupt that signal and change that pattern. The work actually helps the system autocorrect itself. But with that being said, it also can change things having to do with movement. So like an athlete that may have to train in something for 6 months or a year, we can train the nervous system to do that in a few minutes. So you might extrapolate how that could extend to other movement and movement issues as well. So it actually helps with things like learning. It helps with things like learning disabilities even as well, how the eyes are actually working in concert with how the ears and other parts of the system are taking in information and then reacting as well. So there's a massive host of things that it can be used for. Schools is one of the one that is so dear to Bill's and my heart. It can be helpful
Mine
with,
too.
yeah, with preventing trauma as well. So it's just a whole host of things. I think we could probably go on for weeks about all the things that it does work for. But if it has to do with the electrical system in the body, it helps with that.
That's so cool. So I have some brochures. I've got a ball. I've got some other things here, but it says the most effective tool for life-changing results available. Break the loop, break the pattern, break the problem. And so I'm really interested, and I know everybody listening is interested in knowing how this can prevent trauma. You know, it's interesting because Choose Love teaches about post-traumatic growth, the awareness that we grow through trauma. It gives skills and tools to be able to manage the difficulty and the pain and to assign an appropriate meaning to it so that it doesn't result in prolonged pain and suffering and trauma. I'm wondering how the Cogno movement does that.
Well, if I can just share a short story, and I know Bill will add to this. There was a period of time in which there was an experiment happening in a school near me. And what the teacher said is trauma is our issues. And I'm like, well, what about learning? And what about test taking? I think we can help with that. And he's like, nope, our problem is trauma. Trauma, what in the world? So I had the opportunity to talk to a principal there, very, very, very sweet man. And he said, look, I've got kids who are traumatized on the way to school, traumatized because maybe they don't have clothes or shoes or food, or parents are fighting, or they don't like what they're wearing that day, right? You know, and then they come to the school and then maybe they have an infraction, maybe they have a bad behavior. And then they have to come in my office. And he says, I'm traumatized by the life I know they're living.
Wow.
And I'm traumatized because I know I have to create discipline for a child that is suffering and struggling. You know, that's the expectation. I know that that child is traumatized having to come and see me because now they're in trouble, right? He said it's just a mess and nobody feels good when they leave. So we used Cogno movement to have the principal, it's a ball, there's a ball involved, it's brightly colored, to toss that ball back and forth between himself and the child before they ever start talking. So we begin a communication, an agreement, right? How fast are we throwing this ball? How hard are we throwing this ball, right? Neurologically, we are now in harmony because we're tossing back and forth. Then we ask the principal to just begin to ask questions. From your point of view, what happened out there on the playground? I'm listening, right? So the whole conversation takes place in a way that neurologically now does not create a new trauma. In fact, starts to build in, without even talking at all, some respect, some compassion. And now both people, the principal and the child, are able to negotiate this whole problem set with a calm, easy, communicative way that for both of them does not create a heightened injury. So if you think about it, when you were a kid, did you ever get sent to the principal's office even one time?
Never.
I did one time, and I can
Just kidding. So did I.
Do you remember what it felt like?
Yeah, it was awful.
Right? The
Yeah.
anticipation. And so that moment in time could create a trauma that could last for a long time, depending on what that
I
negotiation.
remember it, and my body goes back in and feels it today. And this was in elementary school.
Yeah. Well, imagine the kid that is the troublemaker or the bully or whatever it is. So just that alone, that one little example, they were able to use that and have so much better outcomes in these interactions with the principal. And it allowed the principal himself not to be taking that trauma home to his family every day. So that's just one example of how it can actually prevent a trauma. And when it's used in schools, the examples are that it seems to really bring down the behavioral issues that would create that visit to the principal in the first place.
Yeah.
So in fact, there was one classroom using it where the year before, in a 3-month period, the teacher had written 100 referrals or visits to the principal.
That's a lot.
Right. And in this period where cogno movement was being used in the classroom, he had written 2. And none of them were actually kids that were in his classroom. They were like whole room incidents. So,
okay, so everybody wants to know, when you're saying use cogno movement in the classroom, what that means. And what is the significance? Like, I have something, for those of you who can't actually see this, I have something that looks like a soccer ball. And on each of the, is this a hexagon? There are brightly colored images, almost like mandalas. And so what is the significance of that?
let's pass that to Bill.
So, all we're doing, all of this is straight up neuroscience. The colors and symbols are recognized by the left part of the brain. And the ball is a 3-dimensional object. It's recognized by the right hemisphere of the brain. Now, every time you catch the ball in a different position, say over to the left or over to the right, you're activating different parts of your brain. So for example, if I'm catching the ball very high above my head, over to the left and right, I'm activating the prefrontal cortex. If I'm down low and left and right, I am more into the amygdala area, the base of the brain, the area that the feelings, and we're moving information from left hemisphere to right hemisphere. This is done through crossing the center line of the body. When your far hand crosses over the center line of the body, the corpus callosum, it moves information naturally. So all we're doing is we're just passing the ball with the kids. All the kids can pass the ball to each other on the left and right. They can stand in a big circle and start passing the ball in a circle around to the left and right and moving it higher and higher and doing the opposite. You're basically causing the left and right brain hemispheres to start to synchronize. For all of us, there's a reason why there was 100 referrals to the principal, and then it went down to 2, which weren't even in the classroom. And that is that the stress these kids are under in these situations, left brain function. We're moving data. That's all we're doing. It's not magical. It's just moving information from left hemisphere to right hemisphere. And you make it fun. And there's a methodology to it. You know, you want to do these sessions in the classroom quick, just a few minutes, and you put it down, and you come back and you do it again, maybe in the afternoon after lunch, that sort of thing. But what happens is the entire classroom just boom settles down, you know. So that's how that works.
You hear that, listeners? That's really amazing. And what do you offer? Training for learning how to do this and how to move the ball and where to start and what it means and where it's in the brain? Exactly.
We have courses for that, and you know, everything that one would need in order to learn how to do this, and even how to do it within a classroom environment.
Scarlett, can I just add one more thing about using it in school and classroom? One of the other things that is done is that the kids call out the color and maybe a symbol that they see. So while they're just moving this basic cross-body movement, sometimes it's moved from the body low to high, we're accessing the learning centers, the ways that every human learns: auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. They're touching a ball, they're crossing the center line, they're saying a color that they see, and they're hearing each other and themselves say that. So auditory, visual, and kinesthetic are all activated. And so kids are just so much more available and ready to learn. So that learning piece is added, as well as it just really settling and calming the nervous system, and the fight or flight system is turned way, way, way down. And in the classroom, this experiment that we're talking about, it was done for 1 or 2 minutes twice a day. Now, it did take some classroom management to make that happen, but really that's it. That was all it was used for.
That is really incredible. And then I know we had a previous conversation and you were telling me about a young woman who was using this herself. I can't remember exactly what the situation was, but you said that she was being driven to soccer games. I think maybe it was an injury, and she actually had the ball with her in the car, and it was helping her manage her anxiety. Do you remember that?
Gosh, there's been literally thousands and thousands, but particularly kind of what you're talking about. I believe it wasn't the soccer; it was a swimming. It was the one. It was he was a swimmer, and it was his grandmother who was a practitioner, and this kid was about 12 years old, and he would get very nervous before the swimming meets and that sort of thing. And what he did is he started utilizing it, but he didn't utilize it until he figured out that it would make him swim faster.
Oh, what?
That was the trick. That was the trick, is like the grandmother knew, like, hey, you know what? Watch this. I want you to, know how fast you swim, right? Stopwatch. Okay, get out of the pool. Now I'm going to do this with you for a couple minutes, 3 minutes, and boom, swam like way faster. And once he figured that out, the kid figured that out, you couldn't get the ball away from him. He was like, and he figured out, it's going to lower his anxiety, which is what it does. But he became a big fan, so much so that he ended up moving up. He ended up competing against like 15-year-olds. And so it was kind of an amazing story, but that was one application for kids.
That story is fun because he would say, started having a mantra, I swim fast, as he moved the ball left and right, low to high, and before each meet. And what it really does, why it helps athletes so much, is one, it calms anxiety, but it harmonizes the left and the right side. And most of us, for every reason, we're kind of lopsided. We kind of have a torsion in the body from injuries, and even from trauma, and even from anxiety, daily stuff, sleeping wrong. So what he was inadvertently doing is calming his nervous system, letting the confidence come up, but also harmonizing the left and right side of the body. And when that happens, a person is far, far stronger. Bill used to go to some of the gyms and have the guys lifting weights, try it. And a lot of times the jump would be somewhere in the, 20 or 25% strength improvement. So this is kind of the thing. We think about behaviors, we think about learning, we think about, trauma, that kind of thing. But they're so interconnected with everything else that we do in our lives that a tool like this improves the entire life, not just one little aspect.
That's incredible. So when you say it improves behavior, it reduces anxiety, it improves performance, do you think that it would improve grades as well?
It does. It does. In the experiment that we did with the school here, what happened was we sent home a paper to ask the parents, like, what's happening at home? Like, what are the behaviors like at home? And one weird pattern emerged. They said, lots of parents said, we're getting along better. There seemed to be less fights. But they all said, the weirdest thing is the kids are wanting to do their homework. Right? And consider test anxiety. Like, who doesn't have test anxiety?
Absolutely.
So of course grades get better when tests are better,
Yeah.
And so bringing down the anxiety for tests, that's one
Yeah.
aspect. But another big aspect is that when the right and left hemisphere are communicating with each other during a day when a child is learning, they the brain naturally takes that information and stores it in a resourceful place. So what most people don't know is that kids will learn one day on the left brain, one day on the right brain, one day on the left brain, one day on the right brain, or periods like that. If you have a child who is in their left brain on the day that math is being taught, but they realize they're not good at it that day, the body could shut down that center. And furthermore, you've got a kid who's not good at math.
What's the difference between the left and right side? When you're saying you vacillate between the left and right side, how do we do that? Or why?
Why do we do it when a brain is growing? I'm not sure for the why that happens. It just is the way that the brain grows, left and right. Maybe it's concentration of energy. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But what we know is that is the way the brain works. But so if you have a concussion, like on the day that your left brain is the functioning, you may have problems with the left brain, with organization, with anger, with math. Or on the right brain, if you have a concussion or an emotional injury on that day when you're learning, somebody says you're not good at, let's say, reading or language.
Or you tell yourself that.
Yep. From that minute forward, you're not good at that. When a child's brain is being harmonized every day, once or twice a day, then more of the brain is available. And the body has the ability to store information in a more resourceful place so that then the person can access it again. That's what grades are about. We all have really an eidetic memory. Our problem is we don't have an accessing tool. We have trouble accessing the information. The brain has all of the information, the body really does, but it's accessing that's the issue. So when the brain is putting it in a more resourceful place and it's more accessible, of course your grades are better and your confidence is better and you're calmer and you're happier. So it's all the things wrapped up together.
Hi, my name is Scarlett Lewis. I'm the founder of the Choose Love movement. I founded this organization following the murder of my 6-year-old son, Jesse, and 27 others at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I realized then that we must come together in order to solve the escalating issues of violence, substance abuse, and mental illness in our country and world. I created the Choose Love movement because, as humans, we are 99.9% genetically the same. We all need love, and we all also feel pain. We teach all ages how to choose love and grow through pain. It's pretty simple. Love feels good, and anger, hatred, and resentment feel bad. Hurt people hurt people. Even though we can't always choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. Love is always the strongest response. 6-year-old Jesse stood up to the shooter and saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. We all have the capacity for that courage. Join the Choose Love movement today and be part of the solution by creating a safer, more peaceful, and loving world. Thank you.
Interesting. So Bill, when I met you, you hadn't started the Cogno movement yet, correct?
No, I don't think we back then Cogno movement didn't exist yet. It was I was out helping people with other things, but it had not come to fruition yet.
And how did it start? I know that you'd been really working on the aspects of the brain, and I know that you were into some other modalities, but how did you get to the Cogno movement?
Oh my gosh. Well, it was just an idea. It was just a strange idea. My wife, I had this idea. I knew about some of the brain function. What the left brain does, what the right brain does. From other modalities, I had learned about crossing over the center line and that creating information flow across the brain. there was all kinds of little pieces of the puzzle. And so I had this idea, and I made this ball. I had my wife make it, and I just made a colorful little ball, and we put some of these, just geometric symbols on it. And I happened to be one of my friends that I've known forever since we were 18. I said, "Hey man, could you help me? I got an idea." And he says, "Yeah, I'll help you. I'll be your guinea pig, but you got to give me a ride to the airport." And so I arrive with my ball, and I say, "Okay, man, I don't want to know a thing about your problem. I just want you to focus on your problem." And that's it. And I threw him the ball to his left side, and I said, "Say the color." And then he threw it back to me, and "I'm going to throw you the ball to the other side. Say the color." And so I did this, throwing the ball, and it was only about maybe 2 or 3 minutes. All of a sudden, he's sweating profusely, just drenched in sweat, and he's like, "My belly button is hot." And I'm like, I started laughing. I'm like, "What the heck? Your belly button's hot. I've never heard of this in my life, but his belly button was hot, and I'm dry as a whistle, and he's sweating. I said, "Okay, just keep focused on your problem, your big problem." And I threw the ball back and forth. Another 2 minutes goes by, and he says, "I'm having a heart attack. I got a heart attack." And I was like, "No, I don't think so." And I know, straight to hell. And I threw him the ball. And I was like, "No, you're not. Just keep going." It's, "Oh, my heart. And I say the color, focus on the problem. And then it was only maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes. All of a sudden, he starts choking. And he's like, "I can't breathe. And I said, "How's your heart?" "Heart, fine. I can't breathe. Keep going. Focus on the problem." Another minute or two, I was like, he's like, "I can breathe now. I'm fine." I said, "But my head, it feels like a spikes in my head. It hurts." And I was like, "Okay, keep going. And then it went to the top of his head. It was gone. My gosh, I was like, what the heck just happened? And we got in the car, and I gave him the ride to the airport, and I was like, "Dude, what happened?" And he goes, I can't describe it. I'm confused. I cannot feel it. It was the biggest problem in my life, and I can't feel anything about it." And anyway, I think he was a little bit freaked out, didn't hear from him for months. And then it was like maybe several months passed. Him and his wife came over to the house, and his wife starts talking about finances. These finances, we found 2 houses in Utah, and they cash flow day one with just an absolute minimal amount down. We're actually getting cash flow. We're paying those off. And then we had our regular house, and we made the garage into an apartment. We're getting all kinds of cash from that. We're paying off the house. And she said, "You know what? All this happened after that thing you did with him. It all became available." And I was like, "Hey, so tell me, we didn't even know. What was that about anyway? I don't know. What did we do?" And he said, "I was coming up on retirement age, and my retirement plan was to buy a trailer, move it out to the desert, and live that kind of desert methamphetamine lifestyle, whiskey and tumbleweeds and screen door slamming and that sort of lifestyle." And it was like, well, that was his fear. Anyway, bottom line is
fear that he would do that.
Yes, that's what he thought. It was his only option.
Oh, I see.
But today, now many years have passed, and he's living now in Utah. He's retired. and he's got more money than he can spend. So
That's
it was
amazing. So basically you worked through that fear of his, removed some blocks and rewired his brain.
exactly rewired his brain and his nervous system. And then it was just off to the races. So many, it is literally not a week goes by that something new doesn't happen and we discover some application for it. What we're doing really, just so, there's probably a few things that are said here about what we're helping with, but I want to be clear that what Cognitive Movement does is we build mental acuity, we rewire the brain, we cause an involuntary relaxation response. And with those things, so many things happen. For example, Liz Larsen, this is like an incredible gift to humanity that Liz Larsen came and found a way for children suffering, and we're talking about violent, nonverbal children suffering with autism, they're so tense, a way to cause an involuntary relaxation response and more. It's just an absolute incredible discovery.
That's incredible. So this works with, athletes, it works with students, it works with teachers, professionals, trauma survivors, pretty much everybody can benefit from this, right?
Correct. And it's not, and one of the things I was just mentioning, that like this whole thing with that Liz Larsen had discovered, is that we are utilizing their non-focused vision. So, we talked about looking at the ball before, but the discovery that happened is with non-focused vision. If you have a child that's suffering with autism, they have an extremely hard time moving their eyes. It turns out that they can track in their periphery, just keeping their eyes forward. And Liz, can you tell the story about that?
Well, yeah, I want to just answer Scarlett's question directly. You were asking like about the different things that it could work for.
Yeah.
And so specifically, one way to look at it is what changes when your body is not in fight or flight? Everything. Your frontal lobes don't really work when you're in fight or flight. Your limbic system is driving you to get away from the lion that's on your butt, right?
You're reacting, not thoughtfully responding.
Yeah, we always look at it this way, like if a lion walks in the room today, you don't have time for your frontal lobes to be like, gosh, that's a cute little lion. I wonder if it'll bite me. No, you really need this system that's intended to get adrenaline pumping, get your heart going, get the breath in so you can get the heck out of there, right?
Yeah.
So that's a body under stress, but it's intended to be just real short periods and then recovery. But we're in constant stress. So when you are in fight or flight, your frontal lobes don't work, you're not learning. You're not healing because your body is sending all the energy to the big muscles to get you to move. So it doesn't have extra energy to heal, right? You're not going to be real coordinated. You're not going to have everything, really firing because the body's focused on saving your life. And now from an enemy that's probably not even present.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one way to look at cogno movement is the number one thing that it does is it gets the body out of fight or flight. And so from there, everything works better. So just stress, if you look at it at when stress is diminished, reduced or deleted, how does everything work better? So I hope that answers.
Incredible. I'm thinking about my teachers, and I'm thinking about, getting their kids together for a couple minutes in the morning, throwing this ball around, getting their kids present, focused, ready to learn, and then sending them home that way too. I mean, it's pretty revolutionary.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. On our YouTube channel, there is a I think it's called a theater experiment. I'll send it to you, Scarlett, but it on YouTube, it's called the theater experiment with cognitive movement. And it shows a teacher, he's the director, he's also a teacher, the teacher that we did the experiment with at the school as well. 65 kids from second grade to 18. And, normally it would take them, I think they said something like 45 minutes to get everybody going in the morning, to get everybody settled down, to get all the issues going. They got that whole process down to 7 minutes from start to finish by using this cognitive movement tool in the morning. And what they do is you get in a circle, small circle, and the kids would pass the ball to the left for 1 minute, calling out the color that they see, pass the ball to the right for 1 minute, calling out the color that they see. And it was very quick. We filmed over the series of days, and that's what the video shows. First, they started doing 60 kids at a time, and then it had to come into much smaller circles. But I think by day 3 or 4 of a 2-week, it was a theater summer camp, they were down to 7 minutes. Like everybody was firing on all cylinders. And they said, this production was better than anyone that they'd ever had because the kids were so relaxed and engaged and having a good time that it really made this great thing. So 2 minutes a day of moving in this way, engaging the brain in this way, changes everything. And if you just look at it from the level of stress, everything changes from there. You take the stress out and everybody just works better. And I think that's what Bill was referring to with the people with autism. Their stress levels are different. Their nervous system works different. And they tend to be in fight or flight to an extreme level. And for them, we found that using the non-focused vision, what you might refer to as periphery, it's a little different than that because the eyes are actually focused direct ahead. And then they allow the brain to also see another point in space. And for them, that completely relaxes that fight or flight pattern that they're in, which is quite extreme, and allows them to have connection with their body in a new way, in a way they never had before. We didn't understand until this experiment happened that and they told us they didn't have control of the way their limbs were moving. So think about a quote unquote normal or typical brained person in fight or flight. You don't really have control of how you're thinking. You may not have a lot of control of your reactions. Things are a little bit frenetic because the body's trying to get you out of the way of danger. So in a person with autism, what we discovered or severe brain injury, their body was doing the same thing, but with movement, with connection with limbs, and with connection with the brain, and moving in a way that they choose. What we found was that their bodies were moving for them. Their limbic system was doing the job without their conscious mind's contribution. Using non-focused vision for them allowed for them to actually choose how they move. So the brain is so fascinating, but
it really is. And so did you use the ball with them? I'm just curious how you would work with the peripheral vision while you're looking ahead. What does that look like?
So what it looks like, and anybody listening can actually try it. You just let your eyes actually focus on something, gaze on something ahead of you, something 8 or 10 feet out. And then, if you're sitting in your chair, and then with the ball, what we do is actually just move it about 3 feet away from the body around this way in space. And you just let your brain, you got to move slower than that. Okay. You got to move slow. You just let your brain start to actually be able to see that as well at the same time. And it creates a really, really interesting sensation. A person could do it without the ball as well. You look straight forward and just kind of let your brain notice what it can see on the left, and then notice what it can see on the right. And then notice how strange it is that you can also see the ceiling and how you can also see the floor. And it pulls the body's attention in a couple of different ways and has the effect of allowing the body to fully relax, but also makes a lot of new connections. So if you're trying it at home, It's very, very, very slow, reaching to the right, try the ceiling to the floor. And you have to kind of keep resetting. You let your eyes gaze, make sure you're focused on something, but also seeing what's on the left. And then you switch and see if you can see what you can also see on the right. What happens really quickly is all of a sudden you can see in panoramic vision, literally panoramic, like how we play with it when we're driving. It is so cool. But here's the big thing. Most of us, our brain is filling in for us what's in those areas, but we're not really seeing. So the brain is really good at this. It's going to reserve energy and let itself fill in without actually having to use energy to look. So a lot of people don't realize they're functionally blind in a lot of their periphery, especially if you've had any form of head injury, which most of us have had. When that happens, a lot of things happen, like you will trip, you'll fall. You're the person who's curbing the tires on your car, bumping into things. But here's the other big piece. You're making things up about what other people mean, what they're saying, what they're doing, because the brain is also filling in perspectives. So when you actually open up this part of a vision for a typical brained person, all of a sudden the world opens. And now I can see other perspectives. Now I actually witness what's going on in the world around me without my fight or flight mechanism filling in the gaps.
Wow.
It changes everything. It's one of those things in cognitive movement, like Bill explained the very first one, that sends us, for a left turn and opens up a whole new field of what's available to create change in the brain and in the nervous system.
That is really incredible. And everything that you're saying rings true to me. I mean, I've had traumatic brain injury. I've been told that my peripheral vision is impaired because of that. And I mean, that's really amazing. That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Liz. Wow. There's so much here. It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
Bill, I wanted to ask you, on the website, it says that you're an ultra marathon runner, helicopter pilot, and survivor of a near-death skydiving accident. And you say that shapes your resilience and innovative approach. I'm just curious about, I'm curious about that. Are you still an ultra marathoner? And then I didn't know about your skydiving accident, and how did that shape you into who you are today?
Oh, okay. All right. Left turn. I'm,
I know it's a
my
left turn.
past.
Yeah, sorry, but it was,
I love, yeah,
it's so interesting. And I know people love to hear people's stories.
Oh, good.
Why?
Okay.
Because there's always a why in all.
Yeah.
And Liz,
Oh.
I want to hear about yours too. I know that you're a master certified neurolinguistic programming practitioner, and you've done a lot of work. Just, you guys are so fascinating. I mean,
That's great. Okay. All right. Here it goes. Yes, I was a ultra marathon runner. I ran lots of ultras, culminating with the Western States 100. But this was back when I had hair on my head. But you can see it's been a little while. But yeah, I was pretty much a person that was very much into the physical life. And my focus really was serving myself. The truth, the dirty secret. I was serving myself, whether it was yachts, helicopters, Ferraris, chasing the physical things of life and pleasures, and all of that abruptly, aggressively changed for me around 2008. I had the only good word for it is just a a transformation or a spiritual awakening, I I learned kind of about the benefits of forgiveness, that maybe actually it could be beneficial to me to start forgiving. Um, I I was with my girlfriend on and off, and this is a weird story, but she was super intuitive, and I mean like crazy intuitive, where you could tell her like, what am I thinking, and she would be like, it's a fruit, it's an or no, it's a lemon. And I'm like, I don't like lemons. I don't put lemon on my chicken. Lemon's not my thing. If I only had a few subjects at the time. There was, like I said, the list of other things, that I was interested in. But there were so many things that happened, which were one in a trillion. And I loved her, but I couldn't get along with her. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know. And so I was like, finally, I was like, maybe if I understand what it is to be intuitive, which I was all left brain function logic, maybe if I understand that better, I would be able to get married and have a kid and everything, and so I started reading. I got like 8 books on intuition. I started reading them, blah, 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 and all of them were like, said everybody's intuitive, but in order to get there, there's certain blocks. You think it's evil, and I didn't think it was evil, but they said the other major block is resentment. That the etheric realm of information, resentments are really dense. And I think Liz Larsen said, not only was I the captain of my yacht, I was also the captain of resentments. And it was, I was very resentful. The buck stops here, I'm holding everybody accountable. And consequently, that goes back to hurting myself. I didn't understand the relationship in between all of my tragedies, financial collapse, nearly killing myself, skydiving, and many other relationship, you name it, collapses, but they all stem back to resentment. And I didn't understand it. And so, yeah. So anyway, I started forgiving.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of the flip-flop, going from service to self to service to others. And it became compulsory. And here me and Liz are.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, my story isn't the same, obviously, but I definitely say that I understood the value of service, because when you help others, you help and heal yourself. And I bet that we could probably read more about your story, Bill, in your book, The Only Lesson.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's available everywhere.
Awesome. Okay. And then Liz, you're also the author, and I love the title of your book, Liz, Suffering is Optional. So important. And the tiny book of big manifesting. So how did you come to this work? And this is like pretty revolutionary. I've really never heard of anything like this, and I'm excited to get involved. I know I've played around with it a little bit, left to right, and it's powerful. It is really, even like very subtle movements, this ball starts to seem like it's magic. It's pretty cool.
That's a funny thing. A lot of people say that. I think that ball is magic.
Yeah.
It's not the ball. It's the series of things that happens when you use it that the nervous system just responds to. It's like we've discovered the knobs and the meters for the nervous system, and we've discovered how to tune them just right so that the system will auto-correct itself. So my story is not as dramatic as Bill McKenna's. I was sort of born this way. I was that kid that people would ask me questions that I had no business knowing the answer to, but then I knew the answer to. Like they would say to me, "Oh, you're such a wise soul." And they would ask me about their lives. And I thought, this is just weird. Why do grown-ups ask me these questions? But I sort of knew. So I grew up, with that intuition, with kind of receiving information, but I didn't want to be that person because that's a weirdo. So I did a lot of other things in my life, lots of other things, started lots of other businesses. But still, I am who I am. And the biggest part of who I am is I don't like following directions and I don't like taking no for an answer. My mind goes exactly to what else is possible. What else is possible? Yeah, I know you told me that's impossible, but I don't think so. So I keep going. So after like Bill, I owned a $10 million a year business and it chewed me up and spit me out. It collapsed with the banking collapse in 2011. And it was just awful. And right around that same time, my parents came down with one with Alzheimer's and the other with Parkinson's, literally right at the same time. Also, I believe due to a big series of traumas in their lives because they didn't have other markers for those brain illnesses. But as I went about rebuilding myself after that collapse, I began to learn neurolinguistic programming. And I would have to drive 7 hours back and forth from where I live in Southern Oregon to Seattle for that training every month for 2 years. And as I did that, I listened on Audible to every book I could find about how to heal the brain, how to change the brain. Two books that really impacted me were Norman Doidge's books on, I think one is called The Brain That Heals Itself, and the other is The Ways the Brain Heal. But he talked a lot about how the body could influence the brain. So the neurolinguistic programming that I was taking was also just by coincidence, seriously, and I mean seriously, focused on brain remapping, right? So when Bill and I came together, we met each other. We had no business knowing each other. Literally, he lives in San Diego. I'm in Southern Oregon. And we met because of a healing circle, but we brought him here to teach a seminar. He and I started working together from that moment on. It was like, hey, I recognize you. We're supposed to do something together. And within about 6 months, Bill had the first idea of Cogno Movement. And he was getting really great results in the people that he was working with. I was working as a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner at the time. And he said, hey, I'm doing this thing, but I don't know exactly why I'm getting these results. And I'm like, oh, I recognize that. That's a brain remap, right? Turns out that wasn't the whole story at all. That was one end of the piece. So for me, it was about what else is possible here? What else can be done? And so as Bill and I do in this work, there'll be an idea, it passes to the other, and then that gets built, it gets passed back. And this is day by day by day. We try it with practitioners, with our clients, and we send it out to our practitioners and they try it on. So because of that nature of what else is possible, we make exponential growth all the time. And I think it's because of who we are as humans and how we came together. We really think that this became available on the planet at this time, right? And each of these new discoveries that come, like, as much as I'd like to take credit for some of them, really they arrive in our brains and we start to development because they're available on the planet now. The possibility has now opened. So that's kind of how it all got started.
And because we need it now more than ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So people who are listening, if they are interested and they want to learn more, I know your website is cognomovement.com, but how should they go to the website and read it? Do you have links to courses or how does that work?
Yeah. So you start at cognomovement.com. Those two books that you said, Suffering is Optional, and The Tiny Book of Big Manifesting, they're free downloads. You can download those.
Wow.
There's all kinds of information and research and videos on a YouTube channel, also called Cogno Movement. Facebook, also called Cogno Movement. But if you come to the site, I think there's an arrow that says start here. It shows you where to begin to get these tools. We have a program called the Essentials. A person gets the ball and immediately they start learning the pieces to do this for themselves. Of course, they can hire a practitioner. A person could even work with Bill and myself. We have practitioners all over the world also. That we have group classes and we have live events. And there's one coming up in September, September the 9th through the 13th, live in San Diego. It's our Super Bowl for the year. It's called Cogno Conscious.
Wow.
And what we do is we go through 17 levels of the most common emotional situations that people have in their lives. And for 6 hours a day, we use this work to delete those patterns like shame, guilt, fear, anger, courage. And then it moves all the way up into acceptance, love, joy, bliss, willingness, all the way to the feeling of enlightenment. And it's all based in what pattern does this actually feel like and what part of my life is blocking me. And the reason we say this is our Super Bowl is it creates the most change for anybody at any time in such a short period, 5 days, because you're just hitting it all day long.
Wow.
It changes a person's awareness and consciousness and physicality. It changes their mental state, changes their mood. Lots of times it just changes their entire life after. So it's a big event, and it's not for everybody. It's for the courageous, and it's for that person who knows I'm ready to change that one big thing in my life that has stopped me so far. Really, like, that's the criteria.
Yeah, I know the criteria is courage, because it takes courage to hear an idea and actually try it to see if it'll work for you. That's actually a very courageous thing to do. And so, I encourage people to go to the website and check it out and do a course for themselves, order the ball for your classroom. I mean, if I were a teacher, I would do that. I think that it is so cool. And why not just try it if there's something out there that can help you and can help your kids. I know that we could go on for much longer, and I know that we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg, and I can't believe that our time is almost up. And I'm sorry that we have to end this, but we will do another session. But do you have any wrap up things that you want to leave with the audience, Bill and Liz, or one or the other?
I'll just say one thing. A person can't actually order the ball individually. The ball doesn't do you any good unless you know how to use it. So
Okay.
It comes with any of our courses or any of our classes. So just want to make that clear. If you're a teacher who wants to put this in a classroom, reach out to us at info@cognomovement.com and let's have that conversation so that we can help and support and get you what you need. So go ahead, Bill.
Oh, one quick little thing. This is the Choose Love program. What if choosing love was as simple as knowing where to look? There is an eye position that you can put your eyeball into, literally, and it's custom, your position, and it will throw you into the feeling of love. Choosing love can be as simple as knowing where to look. There's a course there for you for free. It's right on the header on the cognomovement.com main page.
And you know what? I have the honor of having an in-person session with both Bill and Liz, and we found that spot for me. Now, in my own personal trauma healing, I've done brain spotting. And so that's finding another spot for trauma. So when you all came to me and said, hey, we found a spot for love and joy, I was like, yeah, that makes total sense. Because if there's one for trauma, there's got to be one for joy. And so we worked together. It was fairly quick, and I found that spot, and I go to that spot. It's simply like looking at a place. It's gazing in a certain direction. Mine happens to be the upper right, and it's just this, these neurochemicals that wash over you, this feeling. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Could it be that easy? Well, it is. All you have to do is learn how, and it's really cool. So I just want to thank you both so much. Thanks, Bill, for getting that in. That's the thing that I wanted to make sure that we got in, and I might have forgotten that. So thanks so much for reminding me. Thank you all for all of this and for your service to humanity and the service that you will provide to our audience. We really, really appreciate you. And I will say thank you for choosing love.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, hey, oh. It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up if you let it in. Let